everybody. Thanks for tuning in from wherever you are out there in cyber world. We're celebrating National Clean Energy Week, and we decided to do something a little bit different this week. What we wanted to do is bring a guest on to talk a little bit about clean energy and a lot of the innovations that PPL is working on. So we have with us today Aron Patrick. He's the Director of Research and Development here at PPL Corp. Now, prior to the role that he currently has, Aron served in key roles at LG&E and KU. Those are PPL companies. And he was previously the Assistant Director at the Kentucky Department of Energy. So welcome, Aron. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us here on the 5th floor at the PPL building.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You know, we were talking a little bit about research and development a second ago and what it all entails. But talk to us about your role at PPL. Like, what is it that you do, and how does that play into the strategy of net zero in the future?
I am so excited to get to lead research and development for the PPL Corporation. We are focused on researching technologies that can improve the way that we provide services to our customers. So as you know, our mission as a corporation is to provide safe, reliable, sustainable energy at the lowest possible cost. So we are out there looking for technologies that we can bring home and apply those. That's more of the research side. So we're looking for technologies that will help us support that mission.
PPL has set a net zero goal, net zero emissions by 2050, and there are some interim reduction targets. 70% reduction by 2035, 80% reduction by 2040. So how does your department, how does research and development tie into those goals and the overall clean energy strategy?
So we're researching a variety of technologies that will be applied across our company and across our system. But our number one main focus is sustainability and decarbonization. We're looking at improving renewables so that renewables can be deployed in a large scale today. So improving solar power and improving its ability to be integrated into our existing portfolio. We're also looking at energy storage technology that will help us shift power from when it's being produced by the renewable resource to when it's not. So as you know, the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. In fact, the sun isn't shining about 50% of the time. And so energy storage technologies that we're looking at will be a big part of how we decarbonize our electricity portfolio, because it's going to enable us to store solar power when the sun is shining and then use that power when the sun is not. Same for wind. We're going to be shifting power from when the wind is blowing to when the wind is not. We've got a variety of other technologies that we're exploring right now and working to develop, including carbon capture and green hydrogen. So with our partners at the University of Kentucky, we are really leading in the carbon capture and sequestration space. So that's capturing carbon dioxide from a power plant to eliminate that source of emissions, but also it's capturing carbon from the direct air. So it's a system called direct air capture, where we're bringing CO2 in from the ambient air and storing it or repurposing it for some other use.
It's amazing the work that you can do through partnerships. You mentioned that you're working with the University of Kentucky, but I know that PPL is involved with partnerships with other organizations. You were recently at the GE facilities in Greenville, touring there, looking at some of their state-of-the-art green technology. What are some of the other partnerships that PPL has established and is engaged with in the space? I'm
really glad you mentioned that, because it's all about having strong partnerships. We recognize that we can't do this alone. We're going to need strong partnerships with other utilities, with third-party companies that are providing solutions, as well as through our partnerships at the national laboratories and nonprofit organizations. There's a couple partners that I'd really like to mention. One of those is EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute. We've been working with EPRI for decades, partnering with other utilities from around the country and around the world via EPRI to collaboratively research solutions to problems we face, including decarbonization and sustainability. At EPRI, we have joined the Low Carbon Resource Initiative, which is a subgroup at EPRI hyper-focused on decarbonization and deploying green hydrogen technologies in particular. Another partner that I'd like to mention is the Energy Impact Partners, or EIP. EIP is a really a neat new group that has been formed to help provide capital to startups or small businesses that are looking to either promote equity or decarbonization. Through EIP and investing in EIP, we're able to get in on the ground floor of some of these really neat and innovative technology startups.
Now, we mentioned that it was National Clean Energy Week, but last week, talking about EPRI, you actually had an opportunity to have them at the E.W. Brown campus and tour them around. You had mentioned about how you're partnering with EPRI, but it sounds like, when they visited the E.W. Brown campus, they actually had some takeaways, from that experience. Talk to us a little bit about what that visit was like, that tour.
Partnerships go two ways. And so in many of these partnerships, we're learning from where people have applied sustainable energy projects. But in other cases, we're leading. And some of the areas that we're leading in is the deployment of carbon capture technology, as well as in energy storage. And so it was really exciting to see people coming from utilities all around the world. Some of them even had interpreters that they brought with them to make sure that they understood what was going on so that they could take that back home.
Obviously, we have net zero goals moving forward towards 2050. What's the impact that you feel that PPL can have on the world that you see out there in 2050?
But I don't think it stops with just being net zero ourselves. My goal is that we lead, that we provide an example of how we can deploy these renewable technologies while maintaining reliability and low cost. And I think we're going to have a bigger impact than just our company. We're going to be an example for other companies to implement these technologies and these solutions.
Well, thank you so much, Aron, for sharing your thoughts, and we appreciate you stopping by to join us during National Clean Energy Week.
Thanks a lot. Glad to be here.